audit log reports. The most important thing to understand about the audit logs in Office 365 is how many there are and how they're related. Audit logs track activity for each of the Office 365 services, and these activities can be categorized as either user activity or admin activity. Now, in the case of Exchange, the user activity is replaced with mailbox activity, since there could be mailboxes that don't belong to a user or that need to be tracked independently of a user. In Exchange Online, the mailbox log and the admin log are maintained in separate databases. The mailbox log is off by default and must be turned on for each mailbox. You can do it in bulk in a PowerShell script, but it's a setting that's tracked on each individual mailbox object. When you turn it on, the default behavior is to log only activity for non-owners, meaning it doesn't log anything when you open your own mailbox or interact with your own mailbox. But it does log something when other people open your mailbox or when you open somebody else's. And you can change this, however, and track user activity on their own mailbox, and we'll look at how to do this in a little bit. The Exchange admin log, which tracks all changes that the administrators make to the Exchange configuration and user permissions, is the only log that's actually on by default. Each of these logs have their own set of commands to manage settings and search through the data. Then there's the Office 365 Unified log, which is off by default as well. And when turned on, it can track or aggregate user and admin activity from all Office 365 services, and that includes Exchange as well. So the Exchange audit activity from both audit logs are also logged in the Office 365 Unified log. When I first started studying this and learning about auditing in Office 365, this was a confusing concept to me because it wasn't explained very well. But once you understand this relationship, the rest should be pretty easy. So this slide just shows everything we discussed in list format. We have here what user and admin activity is tracked in the Unified log. And for the user activity, the Office 365 Unified log tracks SharePoint, OneDrive, Exchange, Sway, Power BI, and Yammer activities. As mentioned, the end user activity for Exchange is tracked per mailbox, not per user, and is off by default. And again, it only tracks non-owner activity unless specified to do otherwise. The admin activity for these services are also recorded. The difference here is that there's no admin activity for OneDrive, and also Azure AD has been added. Now, if you want to turn on the mailbox audit logging for a user, you use the set-mailbox command with the audit-enabled true parameter. These are Exchange PowerShell commands, so you'll need to initiate an Exchange PowerShell session, which, as we've seen previously, is not done with a module, but by creating and importing a remote session. Also, not like the Office 365 and Azure modules, you don't need to specify users by UPNs with mailbox command. You can use the UPN if you want, but you can also use the user's same account name, display name, email address, mail nickname, and common name as well. You can also use this command to turn off mailbox logging and to set the age limit of the log, and the default is 90 days. And with any of these logs, if you decrease the age of the log, you will lose data. So if you have an audit log age limit of 365 days and you change it to 180 days, you're going to lose everything past 180 days. If you want to track owner activity and not just non-owner activity, you can turn on the owner activity tracking for particular actions by specifying -audit owner and then the activities that you want to track. And this is assuming you've already enabled mailbox logging to begin with. Another confusing thing about the Office 365 and Exchange audit logs is that the list of auditing reports in Office 365 Admin Center are actually the Exchange audit log reports and not the Office 365 Unified audit logs, with the exception of Azure AD reporting, which will bring you into your paid Azure AD subscription. The actual Office 365 Unified audit log screen is located in the Security and Compliance Center, although the Exchange audit reports and Azure AD reports are also available here as well. In case you ever want to get right to this S&C Center without landing on the Office 365 homepage and clicking on Admin and then navigating to Security and Compliance, you can go right to protection.office.com instead. And we'll come back to this audit log search screen for the Office 365 Unified log after the next slide. As mentioned, you can also get to the Exchange audit reports in the Security and Compliance Center, but there's some extra options here that aren't available in the Office 365 Admin Center. these include a few export options and something called the External Admin Audit Log Report, which shows changes in your Exchange environment made by delegated users. And this is usually either Microsoft itself making the changes or a Microsoft partner that you've granted access to. So if we open the Office 365 Unified Log search screen, we see right away that it's currently disabled, which is how it is by default, although Microsoft has said that soon it will be on by default for new tenants. But nothing is being recorded in the log, and it's not something that's retroactive either. You can't turn it on and then look at something that happened yesterday. So if we click this link to start recording, it'll take a few minutes and then the log will be switched on. Once on, it will collect user and admin activity, and we can search the log by using the fields on the left. We can select the activity we want to search for, or we can leave it to show all activity. And we can specify a date range or a particular user or an object like a file, folder, or a site for OneDrive and SharePoint. There are many different activities that we can filter for, well over 100, and they're sorted into groups. And we can choose an individual activity, or we can pick a whole group and all the activities under that group will be selected. The Exchange admin activity doesn't have an individual or group entry, so that data only shows up if there's no filter and it says show results for all activity. Here's a list of some info that you should be aware of in regards to the Office 365 Unified Activity Log or Audit Log, whichever name you prefer. And we've already gone over some of this. But first, it's off by default, so you have to go in and click the Start Recording button. Second, there's a 90-day limit, and you can't adjust this like you can with the Exchange logs. Third, the dates and times are in UTC format. Fourth, only the most recent 1,000 entries show up. If the results don't go back far enough, then you'll need to modify your criteria. If you need more than 1,000 records, then you'll have to export the data. Which brings me to number 5. You can export the search results, or you can download all. Exporting the search results still has a 1,000 record limit, as it literally just exports what was returned in the search you performed. Downloading all actually reruns the command and exports up to 50,000 records, so this takes considerably longer, as you might imagine. Number 6, the Unified Log will record activity from the Exchange logs as well. Number 7, you must be a global admin to view or search this log, and that goes for all the reports in this objective. And number 8, you must have the Audit Log or View Only Audit Log permissions in Exchange Online to view the Exchange entries. Now, by default, these rights are granted to the global admin, or more precisely to the organization management role in Exchange, which the Office 365 global admin should be a member of. Also, the compliance administrator role in Exchange is good enough as well. All of these logs can be searched via PowerShell. Much like the CSV report, you can get instant results, or you can get results emailed to you if you wait a little longer. Here, the commands that begin with search return results right away. The default number of results for the Exchange logs are 1,000, but you can specify a result size of 250,000 if you like. The Unified Log Search has a default of 100 and a max return value of 5,000 records. The commands that begin with new, however, are different. They search the same Exchange logs, but instead of instantly displaying results on the screen, an email is generated and sent to the users that are specified in the command. And these commands take a bit longer to run. Also note that there's no command like this for the Office 365 Unified Audit Log, just Exchange Online. The Unified Audit Log can only be searched with the search command or from within the Security and Compliance Admin Center. The Get Audit Log Search command shows all the Exchange Audit Log reports that were generated with the new command. When you run a new command, a search object is created, and this command lists those objects. The Set Admin Audit Log Config command is used to turn the admin log on or off. Now, this originally was just used for Exchange, but they added functionality to allow this to work for the Office 365 Unified Log as well. Now, you don't have the ability to turn the admin logging off in Exchange Online, so for Office 365 purposes, this command only works by using it to turn the Office 365 Consolidated or Unified Log on or off. And this is the same setting as that Start Recording User and Admin Activities link in the Security and Compliance Center, only you can use the PowerShell command to turn it off as well as on. Here's an example of a search command for the Unified Audit Log. The start date and end date are mandatory. And as you can see, you could specify record type, which really translates into the services that you want to search through. And you can also specify the result size that you want. Now, if you plan to query a lot of records, you may not want them all flashing across the screen. And if your PowerShell window has a limited buffer, you may not be able to see the first output by the time it's finished. So if you want to go through it one page at a time, you actually have to give your search a name, which is called a session ID. Let's take a look at the first example to understand this better. Here, we're pulling all activity between May 1st and May 8th. Remember, there's only 90 days worth of data, so these dates wouldn't work today. Now, we know we're pulling the whole log because we don't see any other filtering. We give it a session ID called Unified Audit Log Search 5815 and issue a session command return next preview page. The output will be one page of data. Now, if we run this a second time, we'll get the second page of data because we're using the same session ID. The report is kept in the search object and can be referenced by the session ID, and it knows where we left off in displaying the output. The second example shows a command that queries the audit log for a file accessed activity in SharePoint Online. And the third example pulls a list of all activity for a given date range for a particular SharePoint site. In contrast, here's a sample of the new admin audit log search command. Remember that we can't use new commands for the Office 365 unified log, and that the Exchange logs are separated into user or mailbox and admin. And since the new command only works by emailing users, we have to specify a recipient by email address and a subject for the email. In these commands, the name parameter is used for the email subject, and the status mail recipients is used for the email recipients. For the first command, we're querying the Exchange admin log for any user that ran a set mailbox command and with these quota parameters. Essentially, we're looking for any activity where an Exchange admin changed the quotas on a user mailbox. The results will be emailed to David and Chris, and the subject of the email will be Mailbox Quota Change Audit. In the second command, we're looking for any external users who ran admin commands between the 2 dates listed. This will show any changes made to the Exchange Online environment by either Microsoft or Microsoft partners who have been granted delegated access. Next up, Email Portal Hygiene Reports.